Hello, everybody. Chuck Cook, Aaron Hall, Greg Siskin. It's great to be with you today. Greg, I do have to ask you first. Congress is going to change the law, right?
Congress. Well, we'll see. We'll know real soon. They're planning on passing this thing tomorrow night.
So wait a second. So is this optimistic Greg or pessimistic Greg? Is this optimistic Chuck or pessimistic Chuck? That's what I want to know. Where are we? Because, I tend to be pessimistic on Congress.
Well, you and I are in agreement, even contrary to some of the people that are smart that we know, that it's not as hard for the Democrats to do it as some people in the media seem to think it is.
Or Jen Psaki thinks it is, yeah.
Yeah, well, it is. It's really confusing, and I tried just on this little email listserv that you and I were on to try and explain it. And you're right. Let me just give some background, because I know just about everybody that's on this call is affected, including the lawyers here, by what actually happened. So this is the deal. Right now, the Parliamentarian, let's just assume that she is going to be a nay, and we're not going to get. She's going to say no on everything. We don't know yet, because, and that's another issue I have, is that I just think that they have been hiding the ball in the with Senate staff on. I'm sorry, Senate staff. I know some of you probably watch, but in terms of what's been presented to the Parliamentarian, how it's been presented, the timing of the whole thing. And I was a little shocked to actually find that language was not submitted until like only a couple days ago on there. And it's like, we're hearing all this in the news, that there's this rush to get this thing done by the end of the month, and all these terrible things are going to happen, and Biden's trip is going to be ruined, and the highway funds are going to run out, and all these things are going to happen if it's not done. And the Democrats still hadn't presented language to the Parliamentarian, until early last week on there, when all these people are thinking, what's the Parliamentarian taking so long? Well, apparently they never presented her with the language until just a couple of days ago.
Hold on. I gotta interrupt you because I have questions for Greg. Number one,
right? Plan C.
Greg, what does Plan C? Do we know? Did they give language that included the recapture of past year's visas?
Well, so that's another question on here. Nobody knows exactly how, what language, and I have been talking to a couple staffers who also seem to be my problem is my best contacts are on the House side, although I have one on the Senate side that knows and is just not telling anybody anything. But my understanding was they don't want to be in this pickle where they deliver nothing for one group and everything for the other group. So they were hoping basically to present the hard language first, get that out of the way, and just assume that the other stuff was going to be along for the ride. The hard language was the legalization stuff, and that was Plan A. That was what was in the House bill for the Dreamers. Plan B was the updating the registry date. Plan C was this parole and program, language to permanently, basically DAPA and DACA and all this other stuff would be part of the statute, and wouldn't, we would survive court challenges and all that. That's what these plans have been presented, but no one knows yet, or they're not saying what's the story with the other language. Now, what we do know is that the House language has, I guess, they've decided that that's definitely being that's staying in as is, and they may change it depending if the problem.
And Greg, that's actually registry language, the House language.
Right, and the registry would take it up to 2010, which that's a pretty significant advancement, although it leaves a lot of people out. I don't know, Chuck, why 2010 was the date, but there's a reason.
Well, you have to understand, remember, the undocumented immigration population stopped growing in 2009. So almost, I'm going to get.
Why would they?
We're here before.
Why would they stop short of the DACA eligibility dates?
Well, DACA eligibility date was 2007, not 2012. 2012. They had to be here by 2006.
Okay. All right. So it picks up some people after that date.
Yeah. Yeah.
My understanding is that the registry language stays in the House bill for now as a placeholder, but that everybody knows that's not happening because of the Parliamentarian. So my question on that part is,
all right, that's where I kind of like drifted off.
Yeah.
So let me kind of go back to what Chuck and I were just talking about. Chuck and I think, are the only people that seem to like actually agree on this point, because all the people in the media keep saying that it has to have 60 votes for, and the Republicans can stop it, or it has to have, all these things. The way I have read it is there's two different ways that Democrats could approach this issue. One is they could leave it out and then, based on what the Parliamentarian said, and then try and essentially overrule the Parliamentarian, and that would take 60 votes to get that language added in as a point of order. Or they can just ignore the Parliamentarian and pretend she's like just a paid employee of the Senate and is not
Wait.
and is not actually the Senate and is not actually elected to anything by the people, and just do what they want. And if people don't think that they're out of order, then they can raise a point of order, and that takes 60 votes. And the Republicans, and there are 10 Democrats out there, have 60 votes to basically tell Senator Leahy and Vice President Harris and Senator Schumer, or whoever's basically presiding, that that bill that they're voting on is out of order because it's violating the Byrd Amendment, and they have 60 votes. More power to them. So that's what I have believe that is happening, but I don't know that that's what they're going to do, because the Democrats are always. I'm just trained after all these years just to be let down.
Well, the question is whether the Democrats have the guts to do this.
Right. I put a tweet out earlier today because I think Congresswoman Jayapal knows as well that the Senate Democrats are weak, and they just look for reasons not to do things. And so she was basically trying to kind of prod him a little bit on the
final injection.
So I did my part, and and tried to put a little pressure on them and let them know. I mean, actually, I think I have heard from Senate staff who actually care about what I tweet on there. Every once in a while, trying to push something behind the scenes, and I guess they do that on a lot of people who have just a lot of followers on Twitter and on immigration Twitter. But I made it really clear that if they don't expect to get away with blaming the Parliamentarian for not doing anything when you have options. And they have this option. Now, here's the thing, Chuck, it's all moot if Joe Manchin says, if you do this, I'm going to be voting against the bill in the end. So that would be the only reason. You know what? Pin the blame on and make Joe Manchin come out publicly and force the Democrats to take that language out. If Joe Manchin says this language, I'm going to vote against this bill, if this language is in there and you do it this way, then they don't have a choice.
I don't think Manchin's opposed to the language, and I don't think Sinema's opposed to the language.
He said in the past that he's that he has issues with bypassing the Parliamentarian, but I don't know if so this is the way I think that Manchin would probably play it is. I think Manchin would be, the Republicans are going to raise an objection, and Manchin can vote no. He can vote with the Republicans on that issue and still, say that I voted against it, I didn't agree with it, and still basically, vote for the bill in the end, saying, it's like I'm not going to veto. Everything isn't getting my veto. On there. So that could be what he's setting up to do is just, if these 10 Democrats who don't like this from a procedural point of view will have the opportunity to vote no, and they can say they voted against this procedure if they want to basically, explain to everyone.
I don't think there's 10 Democrats.
I don't think there is either. And I actually don't think, they have 50. If this was just straight up vote whether this would, and forget about reconciliation, all 50 Democrats, I think, would vote for this legislation on there. So it's just a question of whether they think there are procedural reasons why they don't want to do it, and whether they're willing to die on that hill on there, whether they would be willing to destroy the entire agenda for the president on this issue. And I'm hoping that that's not the case. The question is whether the Democrats are willing to push that or not. And it just seems like there have been so many points in the past where they've been negotiating against themselves and not willing to do things for fear of disrupting the institution and upsetting Republicans and bipartisanship and blah, 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 and not playing hardball. And hopefully this is not going to be it. I'm hopefully also they're realizing that if they don't do anything for immigrants, then they can kiss their majority goodbye in 2022.
Agreed. And I know we want to get to our case updates, but I'm going to, while I've got you here, I'm going to ask one more question of you guys.
Yeah.
So when I heard about Plan C and that they were going to hinge it on this parole, my first reaction was, what the heck? Why would you do that? Parole's already in the law. Every person who would be paroled could already be paroled under current law. So with that question, whatever the precise language of the new parole stuff is, what objection would the parliamentarian have to it? It's already law. These people already could be.
Well, actually, I don't agree. You have to make it Texas proof. And
Right.
there are things that you can add into the law that can make it really, first of all, you can get rid of this case by case discretion business and let the president basically do
Which
it.
is how they stopped DACA and DAPA, the case by case thing. So
Yeah, there are things that they can do to make this these programs litigation proof. I mean, don't forget, we never got DAPA.
yeah, because of that. Well, because Obama never filed the APA.
So that's the big prize.
Well, that wasn't, but they weren't using the parole authority there. There's statutory parole authority.
Well,
they
were using the deferred action authority, which is the same language.
right, but So why not just make it so that it's litigation proof and that they can bring that program back the day after this passes and benefit 8-9 million people.
No, I agree that there's good reasons to put it in the legislation. I just think that the parliamentarians should have less reason to object to this. But
Well, again, I think if you read between the lines for both the rejections, she doesn't want any immigration stuff in this bill.
She thinks that if it's, well, look, I mean, even if you give her the benefit of the doubt, she thinks that, if it is more about trying to get immigration policy done and using the budget as an excuse for that, then maybe. But, you can say that about just about everything that's in this bill. That's not
every positive immigration thing that's changed since 2000.
Like, what about all this stuff for climate change? You can make an argument that that's a lot more about the environment than it is about a tax rate.
All right, so Greg, I talked to Greg earlier about this. I actually talked to a U.S. senator about this plan, and I think this is the plan. Now, if I was going to give it a rating of 0% chance of it happening to 100% chance of it happening, I'm going with 20%.
Yeah, I have to say I'm probably in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm not changing my practice or giving a lot of hope. There is, by the way, besides the parole authority, there is a recapture provision still in there, which would be great for a lot of our clients. Speaking of that, let's go to our Chakrabarty. We want to give a final update on the Chakrabarty, which was the initial litigation in Maryland the judge sent out around the country. We were going through everything today, and of course, we had a lot of people that were in Texas and Nebraska. But for those that weren't in Texas and Nebraska, I think maybe all but one were approved by the local offices.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to run that final number, but I think, and of course, that's great news for those folks. So, but I also think it's important to talk about these cases, the TROs that we filed let me just put a little note about that up here. TROs, and I want to create a banner for that so that we can talk about this. That was Chakrabarty. So we have all the decisions as of Friday and all these TROs that we filed. In the Texas cases, we got Republican appointees that all pointed to a non-precedent Fifth Circuit decision that said, I can't force the government to make a decision in an adjustment of status case. I mean, that's just garbage. Because as Aaron noted, there's precedent going the other way, saying you can. It was a cop-out. It was a cop-out on these. On the Nebraska cases, similarly, the judges basically said, yeah, I'm not sure I can make them work on these cases, so no. One thing we pointed out, we did, we have, just so people have asked us.
We did get some of the government actually did approve some of these cases before the deadline. So, that was the litigation did what we were hoping, which was at least of some of those cases to get them.
The disappointing is it didn't get everybody.
Right.
We now have folks that need AAD, need advanced paroles. And it's just unconscionable that immigration thinks 11 months is an appropriate time frame for either one of those items to happen. But as noted in our agreement, we're going to dismiss all those cases because the request is an end of fiscal year process. Now, Greg, somebody did ask me this question. Can you sue the Department of State over the visa bulletin and how they retrogress? My answer then was, I don't know. Certainly nobody has ever done that. Because
I think what we will need to find out, and maybe we do it as FOIA litigation. I'm not sure, but I think we need to find out if there has been some, we probably just can't get at it, but getting the communications between state and USCIS over how they made this decision to retrogress, what happened, how they calculated all these new numbers that were supposed to be rolling over. We're just basically getting this, these visa bulletins and these forecasts without any real information being provided on numbers.
More importantly, ignoring the extra visas. I mean, they made that clear. And one of the things we got were these declarations, which I thought were actually helpful to us, which were nonsensical in a lot of what they were saying. The courts just kind of ignored the fact that it didn't make any sense. But when they retrogressed, they said, there's only going to be 12,000 Indian EB3s available in this year's numbers, not counting the extra 160,000.
Right, because they don't know if all these numbers are going to get used, even though they know exactly how many there are.
Well, here's something I actually learned today, and that's that. And I think we should realize this already, but in order to use 280,000 EB numbers, they have to adjudicate 6,000 adjustments a week.
Yeah.
That's what they were doing in September when it was literally all hands on deck and ignoring everything else. So here's the one thing we do know. They are physically incapable of using all the numbers. I think that's the acknowledgement. They're physically incapable of doing it without ignoring everything else they do, or begin hiring literally hundreds of people as adjudicators, which they have no capacity to do right now. So they're going to waste. They absolutely are going to waste numbers this year. I think your point, Greg, maybe we need to do a FOIA asking for the correspondence between the Department of State and USCIS in regards to setting the October and November visa bulletins. That related to visa adjudications, number of visas. I think we're entitled to that information.
Yeah.
It might take us a year to get it.
No, you won't. I've done the last time it's been a couple of years, but we did it early on in the Trump administration. I don't know if you know about, I did FOIA litigation on global entry.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They, the fact that the Muhammad problem on there, where we identified all these people, and about 2/3 of them had Muhammad as their first, middle, or last name, and they were getting their global entries revoked for no explainable reason. They didn't have any.
Muhammad was their first name.
Other than that, Muhammad.
That's something we'll have to look at.
Right. But I can tell you that they only get 10 days to respond, and then we went to court, and they settled pretty fast with us in terms of providing us thousands of pages of documentation, super helpful information, and but you don't have to wait very long. You only have to. They only get 10 days.
Let's prepare that FOIA and see what we can get. Just a couple other updates here on the Go case. The government has 60 days, not 30 days, as a party to the case to appeal, and we've got nothing yet. As far as I know, they haven't set any Go appointments. I don't think Aaron or Greg ever heard anything.
No, they did request to confirm some plaintiff information to prepare without waiving their appellate rights. So it doesn't really tell us much, but we provided that right away.
Yeah. And Gomez, I haven't heard anything on Gomez at all as part of this case. I do want to, on the K1F family-based Cairo, we only have one person left in that case. And the government's given us a couple of weeks to respond, and hopefully we'll get your green card, and we're dismissing that case. On the Rio case, Manila, Moscow, London, I go back to Rio. We filed last week. In fact, last Monday, I filed all the motions to dismiss all the plaintiffs. And I just want to give you guys some numbers.
Approved plaintiffs, not all the plaintiffs. Just
the
ones who've already
dismissed. No, it's Lily would normally join us. And in fact, we're going to probably be going to an earlier hour for our Facebook or for our YouTube here to get information out so others can join us. But Lily let us know that in the Manila case, so let's highlight what we got. What do we have up here? We have got Rio up. So in the Rio case, we started with 131 couples. 48 visas have been issued. So you have been dismissed from the case. 5 people are waiting on, that we know of, are waiting on outcomes from their interviews. 6 have interviews scheduled. 8 cases have been transferred, but no interview yet. And 15 have been stuck at the NVC. You'll note that doesn't add up to 131 because a number of people haven't updated us. So it's really important to update us on that. And
usually what we found is when people are not updating us, that means that they got approved and are here, or they broke up.
Yeah, one of the two. So if you would please update
for the most part, it's good news for.
Yeah, and we do send out emails to update us on the Manila case, which is the Ramirez case. Got a slow trickle of a few interviews and transfers per week. One of our plaintiffs pointed out on Twitter that the Department of State released their stats for August and September, showing a dramatic decrease in K1 processing after a steady rise in July. Honestly, I guess we could bring this to the court's attention, but we have to figure out what's going on there. We got 26 visa issued out of 140, 6 interviews scheduled, 17 transferred but no interview yet scheduled, and 81 at the consulate. That's most of our plaintiffs, by the way. The remainder, so almost every Manila person has updated us. Some have been canceled or rescheduled. In the London case, that actually is the most successful of all the cases, probably having to do with London. 119 plaintiffs, 64 visas issued. 5 are waiting interview results. 8 have upcoming interviews. 21 have been transferred but don't have an interview yet. 1 is at the NVC, and the rest haven't shared with us updates, but that's almost everybody are basically at the consulate. And then finally, the last case is Moscow. Now, Moscow is now a special case because all Moscow is supposed to be processed in Poland, unless you can get a third country, because Moscow is officially homeless as a consulate. So you don't have to go to Poland. If anybody else can take you, you can go there, but you will not be processed in Moscow. Of those 61 couples, 22 have been visa interviewed. 1 was interviewed but didn't tell us what happened. 2 have interviews scheduled. 4 have transferred to a different consulate, but no interview yet. And 27 are at the NVC. So we are hopefully going to push those rest of those out at the NVC. A lot of it depends on how long your case has been pending. Poland, I will tell you, and Greg and Aaron, I think we had a lot of plaintiffs that did have success in Poland. Poland was very generous to take cases outside, even in the context of the DV cases. They took a lot of cases. So Poland's been very, very helpful.
And Warsaw is just a better consulate than Moscow, and it's been all along.
So that's kind of the update on those cases. None of the 4 judges, we have 4 different judges on these cases. 3 have actually granted the motion to dismiss plaintiffs. 1 of them ruled on it yet. But none of them have touched the motion to dismiss. So That's kind of where we are. Also on the H-1B H-1B lottery abuse case, the judge still hasn't done anything on that case either. So let's take a look at some of the comments here today. We're not going to go the full hour, I don't think. Will the government appeal the Go decision? I don't know. Again, they did say, is it right, Aaron? In
one of Curtis's
cases, they said they wanted to appeal, but they needed a permission from the Solicitor General, who's a political appointee. And why a political appointee would authorize fewer DVs is beyond me. But call the White House.
It preserves executive power. That's what it's all about. That's what the whole strategy is about with the Biden administration is we like immigrants, but we like our power more.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Elon Lynn, why the judge ignored it? And it's odd because Judge Mehta actually granted a motion to dismiss in my EB-5 case that I didn't want a decision on because it was moot because EB-5s went away, but did not rule on this one. I mean, not like he doesn't know us well. He knows us very well. So I don't know. I just don't know the answer. Same with Judge Cooper. The thing is, we can't make a judge rule on a case. There's no mechanism to make that happen.
There's no mandamus for a judge.
I've never seen, Aaron, have you ever seen this happen?
Motion to dismiss
for months on end?
I mean, it's not. It's long in the context of our cases, which are usually moving so fast. But in the course of normal federal litigation, it's really not that long.
That part is true. Patrick, I updated you on Manila. Will it be a lawsuit for Tier 4? That's a good question, Aaron. You know what he's talking about there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, he's talking about
DV 2022, right?
About DV 2022, them continuing to apply that tiered approach that Judge Mehta found was arbitrary and capricious in regards to 2021. It's possible, yeah. I mean, here's the thing: we probably need to let it play out. I know we don't want to get too close too far into the fiscal year, but we probably need to see some numbers.
I think we talked about that waiting after the first quarter's numbers.
January. Talk about January.
January. That's and I think it's extremely likely that we're just going to see a rerun and have to do. But this time we'll file earlier because I don't think.
Well, we filed in Seattle last year in November. We just had a judge who sat on the case. I mean, that's the problem. Waiting for Biden to tell the world he loves DV visas. He just doesn't want them in the country. The third lottery, all right. My understanding is that they have or are about to run out of H-1Bs for this fiscal year. Greg, have you heard anything on that? I saw a rumor on a listserv about that.
I have not seen that.
So I saw the rumor they might not have a third lottery. That's the rumor I saw. I don't have any source for that rumor other than a listserv that I was on. And Daniel, no update on that. That is also still pending. Mm-hmm. The thing is, the judge knows we're going to refile that case if he dismisses it. There's no reason not to refile it. I don't think he's got a legitimate basis to deny it at this point. From Serbia, Gramarko, good to see you. Rajiv Gupta, you get 15 case Chakrabarty for approved. It is a success. Well, it was a success for those people. And it just wasn't for everybody else because. No,
I mean, I think it would be. We're definitely disappointed with the way Chakrabarty ended up going at the end of the day. I mean, that's I don't think there's any way we wanted. The reason we were pursuing this was the visa reservation is the number one reason for it. And we didn't win on that issue, and I think that. That's unfortunate. I mean, but
Greg, we were also completely honest up front on this. We weren't trying to take money from it. We just said, look.
No, but you're right. I mean, and there had been a huge amount of people asking us to file that case because, frankly, no one was doing anything.
Right.
And this was the only, maybe Congress will fix it, but no one else was filing that.
And so we did. I mean,
Right.
we were up front. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know what the judge was going to do.
That's the name of the game with litigation on,
Yeah.
on there. We, we've made a lot of good law with some of, with some of the cases. And
I just wish, and the interesting about it, Greg, it was the service centers who chose not to act.
Yeah.
Likely the places best suited to have acted.
Yeah. But we know that the administration, all these people say, oh, if you sue, that you ended up with, making things. It's like they were not going to do anything for you guys. And they're the only way that this was going to get solved was through litigation. And Congress, as we see, can't do, they haven't passed an immigration bill in 16 years on there. Maybe we'll see something, maybe we won't. But the only option available is to litigate. And we did our best on it, and we have a chance, we'll try it again.
That goes to the next question, Greg. We try it again this next year, but earlier, and a lot will depend on the first quarter numbers. Because what Charlie said this many times on Chat with Charlie, they try to use a quarter of the numbers each quarter. That's what they try to do. And we get the first quarter numbers, and they have not issued a quarter of the available.
Well, we might have to. That's why we might have to do some FOIA litigation, get the data, and then see what's happening and make that decision. But the agency seems to have no interest in or capability of solving this problem on their own. And if it's litigation, is frankly probably the only thing that's going to work unless Congress steps in or the White House decides they're going to take this more seriously, and they're not.
And short of getting sued all the time, I don't see. Start taking depositions of people in the White House. Maybe gets somebody's attention.
Right.
On this. Can we amend the complaint? No, we can't amend the complaint because you just can't. You can't amend the complaint at this stage to get to that issue. You can amend complaints on related things. The EAD, advanced parole, is a completely separate matter within the complaint. We have to refile. And frankly, at this stage, I would stay the hell out of Texas and Nebraska.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing that that we're strategizing on is how to deal with that issue, because it impacts a lot of cases, not just Chakrabarty, but on a lot of others. And we need to make sure that this judge, what he did doesn't end up causing much more damage down the road. So that's going to be part of the strategy of how that's addressed.
All right. Valeria, I am Acker's plaintiff. I already said in the U.S. I wish one day to take vacation. I need to do an appointment. Valeria, great to talk to you. Congratulations. I don't understand. But if you want to go to Memphis and have some great barbecue, Greg will be happy to see you.
You got that green card. You can do what you want.
You can do whatever you want. Take a vacation. You can go. All right. Any updates on the EAD case? We're filing this Friday. Is that right, Aaron?
Monday, I think.
I thought it was Friday.
Well, we had been telling everybody it was the 6th, and the 6th turns out it was Saturday. It was my fault on there, so it's going to be Monday.
Okay. If Rye gets a funding, will the Go plaintiffs who are in Europe can take visas? Yes, absolutely they can. That was the thing with that case, is that it was unlimited. It was just anybody can get them. So we suppose that Go plaintiffs will in fact be able to benefit from that, and that was probably about 80% of our plaintiffs were Europe. So, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's the last of our questions there, guys. It's been great to be with everybody this week. We, it's there's a lot going on at this. There's lots of things we want to talk about and give you information on, but we're gonna give you the best information we can, and we're gonna tell it to you straight. And if there's not a real option, we'll tell you that same thing. But I think Greg hit it on the head when he says, litigation in immigration, you just don't know how that's going to turn out. Unfortunately, so much of it has become political, and a lot depends on the judge you get. I don't think that's necessarily true in the DC circuit, but I think that's true in most other places. I think that's unfortunately true everywhere else. And we're going to take one more comments here. What is the latest on the $100 billion immigration? We already talked about that.
That's a question I have for you, because that $100 billion, it is possible that they just provide $100 billion for the agencies to basically have a lot more money to adjudicate things much more.
$107 billion.
Right.
But Greg, that's over 10 years.
If the Parliament, right, I understand that, but $10 billion a year that just goes back, they could use that $10 billion just to do all these, improved service and make the agency run.
Isn't that bigger than their budget now?
What's that? Yeah. I mean, there's a huge amount of money in there that's like, at worst, there's $10 billion a year for the agencies to hopefully be able to, do just a much better job and not be the mess that they are on there. The whole the agencies right now are fee funded. So this is on top of the fees that they're normally charging, an extra $10 billion a year to do all the other stuff that they claim they can't do because they don't have, everything's fee funded. So that could represent, a major positive change anyway, even if nothing happens. I just don't know what happens with that $100 billion because it's all supposed to be used for these purposes, which are about, which are in theory going to be knocked out. And if not, what are they going to use $100 billion for? And that's the mystery.
Get caught up on EB3 cases that they should be.
Yeah, I mean, if that would be a good consolation prize. Not, it's obviously not as great as the bill language that we want to see, but if that's like what happens and they can't pass anything, but they have $100 billion to actually improve service, that's still a win.
Keep in mind that they're not the only ones providing crappy service on immigration issues. There are friends at the National Visa Center.
Right, but I think that $100 billion is for all the agencies, so that would help NBC too.
I mean, $1 billion. If you gave the NBC $100 million,
they have a hell of a video interview system.
Oh man, or the KCC, which basically seems to have 5 people working. I'm not even quite sure how many people work there. According to their last declaration, it was 5. All right, everybody, you have a great evening. We will see you again. We're probably going to change the time next week to be earlier in the day, so you might have to watch it on YouTube.
Right. Lily has promised you can join if we can do it earlier.
Yes, and we do want Lily on here to get this going. All right. All right, everybody, have a great night.